On February 3, 2026, an Iranian Shahed-139 surveillance drone flew directly at the USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group in the Arabian Sea, roughly 500 miles from Iran's southern coast. After the drone ignored every warning signal, an F-35C fighter jet shot it down. According to CENTCOM, the Iranian behavior was described as unprofessional and aggressive. Hours later that same day, 2 IRGC fast boats and a Mohajer drone tried to board and seize the Stena Imperative, a U.S.-flagged tanker transiting the Strait of Hormuz. The destroyer USS McFall raced to intercept, escorting the tanker to safety with Air Force jets overhead. Those two incidents, a drone shoot-down and a tanker standoff, were the match. The gasoline had been building for months. Massive protests across 200 Iranian cities. A collapsing rial, inflation running at 40%. 3 rounds of nuclear talks in Muscat and Geneva that went nowhere. On February 20th, President Trump gave Iran a 10-day deadline to dismantle its enrichment facilities. Iran offered a multi-year pause instead. On February 25th, Iran's foreign minister said a historic agreement was within reach. 3 days later, the bombs started falling. At 1:15 a.m. local time on February 28th, the United States and Israel launched Operation Epic Fury, a coordinated military assault on Iran. According to Pentagon reporting, approximately 900 strikes hit in the first 12 hours alone, targeting IRGC headquarters, nuclear facilities, air defense networks, missile launch sites, military airfields, and leadership compounds across the Iranian mainland. Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei was killed, along with several family members, Defense Minister Aziz Nasirzadeh, and IRGC Commander Mohammad Pakpour. Civilian casualties included roughly 170 killed when a missile struck a girls' school adjacent to a naval base in the coastal city of Manab. Iran's retaliation came within hours. Hundreds of drones and ballistic missiles struck U.S. bases across Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Turkey, and the UAE, the headquarters of the U.S. Fifth Fleet at Naval Support Activity. Bahrain took direct hits from Shahed drones and missile fire. Radar installations were destroyed. Satellite communication terminals were damaged. Nearby residential towers were hit. Bahrain's air defenses intercepted 45 missiles and 9 drones, but the base still sustained what the Pentagon called extensive damage. The Fifth Fleet shifted to what military officials described as a degraded posture and dispersed all ships out to sea. The deadliest single strike against American forces came on March 1st. An Iranian one-way attack drone hit a makeshift operations center at a civilian port in Kuwait, killing 6 U.S. service members, including Major Jeffrey O'Brien and Chief Warrant Officer Robert Marzan. A 7th died on March 8th from injuries at Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia. On March 13th, a KC-135 Stratotanker crashed in western Iraq, killing 3 Ohio Air National Guard members. As of mid-March, according to Department of Defense reporting, 13 American service members have been killed and approximately 140 wounded. Now here is where the scale of the U.S. response goes beyond anything we have seen since the Gulf War. The Navy has systematically dismantled Iran's fleet. On March 1st, President Trump announced 9 Iranian naval ships sunk, including a Jamaran-class corvette at the port of Chabahar. On March 4th, the submarine USS Charlotte torpedoed the Iranian frigate Iris Dina in the Indian Ocean, about 40 nautical miles south of Sri Lanka, killing 104 Iranian sailors and wounding 32. According to Fox News, this was the first submarine sinking of an enemy warship since the Falklands War in 1982, and the first by a U.S. submarine since World War II. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth called it quiet death. By March 5th, CENTCOM's Admiral Brad Cooper reported over 30 Iranian ships destroyed, including the drone carrier Shahid Bagheri, a vessel roughly the size of a World War II aircraft carrier, observed burning in the waters of the Strait of Hormuz. By March 11th, Military Times reported that over 60 Iranian ships had been struck, including all 4 Soleimani-class catamarans. Cooper told reporters an entire class is now out of the fight. As of March 24th, CENTCOM reports over 140 Iranian naval vessels hit, more than 9,000 targets struck inside Iranian territory, and over 9,000 combat flights flown. Cooper summed it up in early March with one line that stopped everyone cold. He said, 2 days ago, the Iranian regime had 11 ships in the Gulf of Oman. Today, they have 0. Iran's IRGC has repeatedly claimed they struck the USS Abraham Lincoln with ballistic missiles. CENTCOM explicitly denied this, stating the Lincoln was not hit, that the missiles did not come close, and the carrier continued normal flight operations throughout. The buildup backing this response is the largest U.S. military deployment to the Middle East since the 2003 invasion of Iraq. The USS Abraham Lincoln arrived in the Arabian Sea on January 26th, carrying Carrier Air Wing 9 with F-35Cs, Super Hornets, and Growlers. The USS Gerald R. Ford, the world's largest warship, was ordered from the Caribbean on February 13th and entered the Red Sea by March 5th. But then the Ford ran into trouble. On March 12th, a non-combat fire erupted in the carrier's aft laundry facility. Over 200 sailors were treated for smoke inhalation. More than 100 bunks were destroyed. 600 sailors were displaced. The Ford sailed to Ceuta Bay in Crete, arriving March 23rd for at least a week of repairs, pulling the Navy's most advanced carrier out of the fight during a critical window. An investigation is underway, and officials have not ruled out sabotage. Additional forces flowing in include the USS Tripoli, amphibious assault ship with the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit, the USS Boxer with the 11th MEU departing San Diego 3 weeks ahead of schedule, and 2,000 to 3,000 paratroopers from the 82nd Airborne Division ordered to deploy on March 25th. According to Al Jazeera, total U.S. forces in the CENTCOM area of operations now exceed 50,000 troops. And all of this firepower still has not reopened the Strait of Hormuz. That is the part of this story that should concern you most. The Strait of Hormuz normally handles 20 million barrels of oil per day. That is roughly 20% of global petroleum consumption and 34% of all crude oil traded on the planet. On March 1st, the IRGC broadcast warnings to all vessels on VHF radio. No ship is allowed to pass. Daily transits dropped from an average of 153 per day to just 13. Over 150 ships anchored outside the strait. According to the United Nations, 20,000 seafarers became stranded inside the Persian Gulf. Iran backed the closure with force. By March 12th, at least 21 confirmed attacks on merchant ships had been documented, killing 8 seafarers and 1 port worker. Targets included the U.S.-flagged Stena Imperative, hit again while docked in Bahrain, the Maltese-flagged Safine Prestige, the Thai-flagged Mayuri Nari, which was set ablaze with 3 crew still missing, and the Japanese-flagged One Majesty. Iran also began laying naval mines. CENTCOM confirmed at least a dozen mines placed in the strait and published video of U.S. forces destroying 16 Iranian mine-laying vessels. And here is a detail that should make your blood pressure spike. The U.S. Navy decommissioned all 4 of its dedicated minesweeping ships in September 2025, just 5 months before this war started. Only 2 of 3 mine countermeasure-capable littoral combat ships are available in theater. The economic damage has been staggering. According to Bloomberg, Brent crude surged from roughly $73 per barrel to a peak of $126. War risk insurance premiums for transiting the strait jumped to 5% of total ship value, up from 0.02% in peacetime. That is a 250-fold increase. All 12 members of the international group of P&I clubs canceled war risk coverage for the Persian Gulf by March 5th, making transit economically impossible, even if a ship could physically get through. Bypass pipelines cover a fraction of the shortfall. Saudi Arabia's East-West pipeline has an estimated 3 to 5 million barrels per day of spare capacity. The UAE's Abu Dhabi pipeline adds roughly 1.5 million. Combined, that covers less than 28% of the 20 million barrels that normally flow through the strait. The Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas, modeled that removing 20% of global oil supply for a single quarter would lower global GDP growth by 2.9 percentage points. So where does this stand right now? On March 21st, Trump issued a 48-hour ultimatum to Iran. Reopen the Strait of Hormuz completely, or the U.S. would begin striking Iran's power grid, starting with the largest facility first. Iran responded that the strait would be completely closed if power plants were hit. On March 23rd, Trump extended the deadline by 5 days, citing what he called good and productive talks through mediators. According to CBS News, Trump then called off the ultimatum entirely as Iran received a message from U.S. negotiators. In a move that surprised analysts, the Trump administration temporarily lifted sanctions on approximately 140 million barrels of Iranian crude oil already at sea, the first authorization of Iranian oil imports in decades. The U.S. also released 172 million barrels from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent framed it as using Iranian barrels against Tehran to keep the price down. Meanwhile, the Houthis in Yemen have not resumed Red Sea shipping attacks despite threatening to do so. Analysts point to depleted stockpiles after the 2024 Red Sea campaign and disrupted Iranian supply lines. But roughly 30 oil tankers near Saudi Arabia's Yanbu port, the Red Sea terminus of the main bypass pipeline, sit within Houthi strike range. If those attacks resume, the last major alternative oil export route comes under threat. Brookings Institution analysts put it bluntly. They called this the big one that energy security planners had feared for decades, writing, "We broke the Strait of Hormuz. We don't think we can use the military to unbreak it." The U.S. has achieved total naval dominance. 140 Iranian vessels destroyed, 0 Iranian ships operating in the Gulf, and the strait is still closed because mines, drones, fast boats, and canceled insurance policies do not care how many aircraft carriers you have. This story is developing. If you want to stay ahead of it, subscribe now. I cover these situations as they unfold with the numbers and sources you will not get anywhere else.